The issue of RRB NTPC recruitment is gaining momentum. The students who appeared for the exams have been protesting since the results came out on January 15. However, the protests hit headlines when students protesting against the alleged rigging of the exams were lathi charged and tear gas was used against them in Bihar's Patna. Similar thing happened in UP's Prayagraj, where police barged into students' hostels and lodges and forcefully dragged them out, allegedly beating them. To discuss the issue, we have someone from Yuva Halla Bol joining us on HW News Network. Yuva Halla Bol, as per its website, is a nationwide youth movement against unemployment in the country, with a focus on job opportunities for youth and fair selection in the recruitment process. It visualizes an India where every Indian can contribute to her or his full capacity to nation building. Originated in March 2018 during the spontaneous nationwide youth upsurge against SSC scam, the Yuva Halla Bol initiative has evolved as a powerful platform for India's job-aspiring youth aggrieved and agitated by the incompetence and insensitivity shown by recruitment bodies. We have with us Anupam sir from Yuva Halla Bol. He is the national president of the movement. We will discuss with him in detail about the reasons why RRB NTPC candidates are protesting, what does he think about the government's handling of the protest, and how does this movement affect the upcoming assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Anupam sir, thank you so much for joining us on HW News English. Before getting into the details of what happened with the students in Patna or in Prayagraj, I want you to, for the people who are looking at this protest from far away, who do not have any idea what the issues are, I just want you to explain in brief for people who do not know about this, why are these students protesting, what are their issues and what are their demands?
So the broad reasons why the students are protesting are two. One is the general context in the country with respect to unemployment and the government's apathy or lack of acknowledgement of this crisis of unemployment. And the other specific reason is are two exams of railways, one the NTPC and the other one the Group D. The NTPC is actually the non-technical popular categories of Railway Recruitment Board, through which various posts like the posts of station masters, train guards, commercial clerk, booking clerks are recruited. And the other one, the Group D, is for fourth grade employees of railways, through which positions such as trackman, gangmans are recruited. So these two notifications were brought in February 2019, 3 years ago. So while there was this scenario in the country of overwhelming anger against the Modi government because of unemployment, and we had this data coming from NSSO, which told that the rate of unemployment has broken the record of for 45 years. And then we had this NCRB data, which showed that every 2 hours, three unemployed are committing suicide. So in this context, when the government was facing barrage of questions on the issue of unemployment, the then Railway Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, made an announcement on the 24th of January 2019 that 4 lakh jobs would be given only through railways over the next 2 years. And immediately after his announcement, two notifications were followed. One was the NTPC, which I talked about, and the other was the Group D. So through the NTPC, 35,277 posts were vacancies were notified, and through the Group D, 1,03,000 plus posts were notified. So in total, around 1,40,000 vacancies were notified through these two exams, for which over 2 crore 42 lakh candidates applied. So you can just imagine the sheer volume of the number of candidates applying for these two posts. And after the Lok Sabha elections got over and the new government was formed in 2019, it seemed as if the government just forgot about these recruitments. And then when students protested, we made appeals, demanded, wrote letters. And then on the 5th of September 2020, we gave a call for banging of thalis and talis and clappings and bells and everything, quite on lines of what Mr. Modi wanted us to do to shoo away Corona. So we made this appeal on the 5th of September 2020, and immediately on that very day, the railway board chairperson made the announcement that NTPC exams and Group D exams will be held from December onwards. So these protests, which erupted after 15th of January 2020, around 12 to 13 days ago, were because the NTPC, the CBT1, the computer based test 1 results of the NTPC were announced, where
Right.
the students found that, unlike government's own notification, that 20 times of the total number of vacancies would be selected in CBT1,
Okay.
candidates who would be eligible to appear for the next process of exam, the CBT2. But in violation of that, the students found that it is not 20 times, but it is around 12 to 13 times of the total number of vacancies who have been selected. So the cutoff
Okay.
went up, and lakhs of students were deprived of the opportunity to sit for CBT2. And then these protests erupted, and then these protesters got support also from the Group D aspirants, for which the
Mhm.
government around 4 days ago brought in a notice and amended the initial notification and introduced CBT2 in the
Mhm.
Group D recruitment process,
Right.
thereby stretching the recruitment process furthermore. So around 3 years have passed since the notifications were brought by the government. not
Right.
not even a single exam has been conducted in Group D. The CBT1 has not yet been conducted, and now the government brings in a notification amending the initial notification and saying
Mhm.
that CBT2 will also, there will be an additional step. So we don't know how long will this process go. Is the government even willing to give jobs through railways or not? So these are the specific reasons why these protests erupted. But
Yes.
as I said earlier, the general reason is that there is a lot of accumulated anger amongst the
Mhm.
unemployed youth. There is simmering anger because of this,
Mhm.
and the lack of acknowledgement from the side of government on this serious crisis. So finding a
Mhm.
solution is secondary. You need to at least
Right.
first acknowledge that there is a problem, only then will you be able to find a solution. So the
Right.
government is not even ready to acknowledge that
Mhm.
there is a deep crisis. Unemployment is like a national disaster today in the country. So
Right.
I hope the government understands that this needs to be taken seriously, and hopefully will
Yes.
then be
Yes.
in a better direction.
Right, right. Like you said, like you narrated, that there is an accumulated anger within the students because the government is not willing to acknowledge it. But as we saw the visuals coming in from Patna or Prayagraj, where students were beaten up, there were lathi charge, tear gas shells were used. In Prayagraj, police kind of forcefully entered in their hostels. So, how do you see this reaction from the government? The students are asking for their rightful jobs, and the government has reacted like that. How do you see this?
So this is very unfortunate, undemocratic, and very dictatorial. And this is actually quite becoming of this government. This is how this government reacts. This is the default mode of this government. Every time someone uh, questions this government, or every time an aggrieved group takes to the streets to protest. So this is the default mode of this government. This is how they react and respond. And then when they saw that this is actually, they are very close to an election in Uttar Pradesh, so then they toned down their style and their words and their everything. And then the railway minister made this. Did this press conference where he had a very conciliatory tone. He wanted to project as if he understands all the problems and is all ready to uh, bring a solution and everything. So this is unfortunate and undemocratic. But I'm not surprised with how the administration behaved.
Sir, we talked about the government response, but there are also reports of students being violent, throwing stones or burning, setting the trains on fire. There are also cases filed against coaching classes teachers, saying they incited the students for this violence. How do you see? How do you see these two things?
So even this violence is unfortunate. Look, violence can never be justified, and the ones who suffer the most because of such a violence are the genuine protesters. Actually, the protest gets the credibility of these protests are questioned when such violence erupts, say, in a protest. So, but the ultimately the responsibility lies with the government, that they do not bring in such a situation. Uh, they do not move the youth in such a direction that such a thing can even happen. If they would have intervened in time, such a situation wouldn't have happened. The press conference which the minister did yesterday, if he had done the press conference 10 days ago, so we wouldn't have seen such a scenario in parts of Bihar.
Right. Sir, you talked about the government intervention. Government at this current moment has suspended NTPC level 1 exams and has also formed a committee which will deal with the grievances of the students. But like I was hearing you in another interview, you do not seem to be quite happy with the committee. You said all the railway officials will be in that committee, how it will solve the problems of
So
students.
the government,
How do you,
yeah.
yeah,
So initially, the government threatened the protesting students through a notice from the railways, and then when
hmm,
they saw that this protest is expanding actually, and it can spill over to Uttar Pradesh,
hmm,
then they decided to form this committee. So this committee
right,
comprises of railway officers. All the members in this committee are railway officers who would
right,
probably have been, I don't know, if they might have been a part of these decisions which
hmm,
ensured such a scenario. So there
right,
is no democratic spirit in this committee formation, and then granting them time till 4th of March. So
hmm,
we see this just as a tactics to buy time until the UP elections get over, until the
right,
polling in the Uttar Pradesh elections get over. So
hmm,
it is nothing more than that. And in fact, when the railway minister did the press conference, he clearly told that they understand what the problems are, they know what the demands are, and actually the demands are very coherent. There is no confusion in terms of demands from the side
hmm,
of protesters. So the
right,
government knows, as said by the railway minister. So if they know what
hmm,
the demands are, and he also mentioned that they have already started working on it. So if they know what the demands are, they have started working on it, then what for this committee? Why do we need this
hmm,
committee then? So I think this
right.
committee is just a sham, and we do not accept such a committee.
Right, sir, you invoke the elections, the assembly elections. The news of the protest has hit headlines at a time when 5 states are going to assembly polls. How important do you think this issue of unemployment is, and how will it impact the results of the assembly elections according to you? How
So
important is youth?
we have been trying for a long time to ensure that the youth agenda comes at the center stage of our political narrative. The issues
Right.
of unemployment, the issues of education, healthcare, environment, these are issues which should be debated upon, which should be uh, which should constitute the election narrative. But unfortunately, it never happens. So I'm actually happy in a way that such an issue has come to limelight. There is at least some bit of public debate on the issue of unemployment, and I hope that the elections in Uttar Pradesh do not sway towards the divisive issues of caste and religion, and they remain focused on these issues of unemployment, then that would be a big thing.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on HW News English. It was
Thank you.
indeed a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.